Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends on where it is that you are joining me from. In case you're meeting me for the very first time, my name is Seyi Agbede. I am a leadership growth enabler and I help individuals and organizations to scale to multiple figure lifestyles, becoming more profitable without sacrificing time, family, or freedom. This is another one of our monthly webinars, and I trust we'll be having wonderful time today. We're presently streaming on multiple platforms. Let me just check and confirm that. Yeah, we are live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube, and we are live on LinkedIn, and we are also live on Instagram. Yep. So fantastic. We're good. So in the next 50 minutes thereabout, I'll be chatting to you about something that has become very important, in the conversations that we're having for now. Like I said, this is a live session. So in case you have questions in the course of our conversation, please feel free to ask your questions, and I will try as much as I can to, take the questions as they come if it doesn't actually distract, what I'm working on. So yes, I should think I can see all. Let me be sure we are all good. Just a sec. Just want to be sure that I can see all the screens so that in case questions are coming in, I'm able to respond to them. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so what I'm chatting to you about today is what I have called how leaders create opportunities in the age of AI, right? How do leaders create opportunities in this age of AI? And I'll be talking to you about, the growth code as well. And the whole idea of this, this is not an AI training. This is not how to use the next AI tool or the next software and all of that. Nope, that's not what this is all about, right? This is essentially talking about how to remain relevant, how to create value, and how to build opportunities in this environment, in this AI age that we are, in the age of AI. That's what this conversation is about. So, the thing is, the future will not belong to the people who know the most. The future will not belong to people who know the most. What do I mean by that? See, knowledge is now cheap. Gone are the days where knowledge was very expensive, right? Back in the days, it was very difficult to access knowledge, especially when there was no internet. So knowledge was stored in books. Knowledge was stored in libraries. Knowledge was stored in places where only few people could access it. So that era, knowledge was very valuable. But in the age where we are right now, with AI everywhere, knowledge is no longer as valuable as you think it is. So the future will not belong to the people that know the most. No, rather, it will belong to the people who create the most value. So it's no longer about the knowledge that you possess or you have. It is more about the value that you can create. So the question is, not about AI. AI is not exactly the main question that we're talking about here. What we're talking about should be what will make you more valuable, right? When, not if, when intelligence becomes widely available. And to a large extent, intelligence is available to everybody right now. That's why it's called artificial intelligence. So you can outsource intelligence to a tool out there, to a machine. So you don't necessarily need to be so intelligent in these days anymore, because you can outsource that intelligence. You can outsource that knowledge. So what would matter is what will make you valuable when this intelligence becomes widely available. That is what we're talking about today. Because so the focus now is on uniquely human and strategic value. That is what it is that we're talking about today. So, like I said earlier, the conversation is no longer about what AI can do. Rather, it is about the value only you can create. The value that AI cannot create, that only you can create. That is what we are talking about today. Now, stay with me. We're just scratching the surface. I'm just laying the foundation of what it is that we'll be talking about today. Now, like I said earlier, this is not another software update. I'm not coming to tell you, oh, this is the newest update of software that you use and all of that. That's not my aim for today, right? Maybe in another lesson we could talk about all of that. But for today, we are looking at how AI is changing the whole system around us. So let's look at a few ways that AI is changing the world it is that we're living in. First of all, AI is changing how work is performed. The way work used to be done, say 10, 20 years ago, is different from the way work is done now. So AI is changing how work is performed. AI is changing how decisions are made. Because right now, decisions can be made at the speed of the amount of information available to you. So when you have information, like I said, knowledge is now everywhere. So decisions the way decisions are being made are different. Also, knowledge. AI is changing how knowledge is accessed. Like I said, back in the days, knowledge was stored in books, and those books were stored in certain libraries that only few people had access to. So in those days, knowledge was scarce. Right now, knowledge is democratized. Everybody has access to this knowledge. So it is changing the way the world works. AI is changing how organizations create value, right? A lot of things are going on in the world today about how value is being created, because before, for you to create more value, you needed more people. But AI is changing that now. We are having less people in organizations, and organizations are creating more value. So it's changing the way value is created. It's changing the way how opportunities are discovered. Because the way opportunities are discovered now is different from the way opportunities were discovered before. Before the age of internet, opportunities was scarce to discover. You had to travel, you had to walk several miles, probably go on a horse. But right now, you can sit in your home. We had a recent case where we had a one-man company that crossed $1 billion valuation. Opportunities are discovered in different ways now. So AI is changing all of this. So the thing is, the disruption is real, no doubt about that. But so also is the opportunity. See, a lot of people focus on the disruption that AI causes. However, with every disruption comes an opportunity. What do I mean by that? Remember, during the pandemic, there was massive global disruption. The whole world was on shutdown. But do you know, the same period where the world was shut down is estimated that over $20 trillion was injected into the global economy because of the pandemic. So while some people were seeing the disruptions, while a lot of people lost income, while a lot of people lost jobs during the pandemic, a number of people were cashing out during the pandemic. So while we saw disruptions, we also saw opportunities. So truth, yes, there are disruptions. AI is causing disruptions. But in as much as AI is causing disruptions, it is also causing opportunities. And it's only those that are observant of these opportunities and position themselves adequately will be the ones that will cash out. Now, let's look at some statistics around how AI is creating some opportunities for us. Now, almost 40% of the global employment is now exposed to AI. 40% of about 8 billion people on earth are exposed to AI. That is a massive market for you. That is a huge opportunity. So despite the fact that disruptions are being caused here, opportunities are also being created. Let's look at another statistic. 78 million new roles are projected globally. Take a look at that. A lot of people are focusing on how many roles are eroded because of AI. That's true. I personally know a lot of people that their jobs have been made, they've been made redundant as a result of the introduction of AI. That's true. But rather than focusing on only the jobs that are being eroded, how about we look at the jobs that are being created? This statistics from the World Economic Forum of Future of Jobs report. It says 78 million new jobs will be created. This is after accounting for jobs created and displaced. So after looking at the jobs that will be displaced, 78 million new jobs will be created by 2030. So what we are seeing is not a job loss. It's not job losses alone. We are seeing a job migration. The jobs are moving from one sector or from one type of work to another. That is what we're seeing. Now, AI is not replacing everyone equally. The pace of replacement of AI in people's jobs and careers is not the same for everybody. It is replacing predictable value. The key word there is predictable value first. So what are the predictable values that we're talking about? First of all, if your job involves repetition, when you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, you are exposed to replacement. If your job revolves routine, right? Routine processing. So maybe you work in a factory and you screw the same set of items every day, all day. It's a routine. Those things can be replicated. So it is not replacing everybody, but for those that if your present job or your present career or your present business model involves this, it can be replicated, it can be replaced. Generic analysis. If your job involves generic analysis, you can be easily replaced because them AI tools can analyze things. They can analyze millions of data points per second. You can't do that. So if that's a major aspect of your job, it's very, very dicey. Template-based outputs. In other words, those kinds of jobs that there's a particular template, it's documentable. You can document it and people can replicate it. That can be replaced. Another one is it is easily replicated, right? Those are the jobs or the careers or the businesses that AI would replace first. So very quickly, let's do an audit, right? I want you to do an audit for yourself, okay? And this is something that would help you. I call it the pattern test, to test your present situation, your career, your job, your business, whatever it is that you're doing. This would help you to test to see how exposed you are to the AI job or AI replacement. So the first thing you ask yourself is process. Is your work completed through an established sequence? So there is a sequence of events. So so every time I have to do my job, I do this, and immediately this happens, and there are several jobs like that that have to do with sequence, right? If your job involves sequencing, so maybe sorting out packages in a warehouse, maybe delivering items to people, there is a sequence to that. If your job involves, if your career or what it is that you're doing involves any of those, trust me, you are exposed. So that's the first test to ask yourself. The second thing to ask yourself is repetition. Is the work performed repeatedly with limited variation? With limited variation, right? Some people perform they perform the work repeatedly, but there are always variations to it. So take, for example, a gynecologist delivering babies, right? They always deliver babies, but every delivery is different. So it might be difficult to replicate that because there are always variations to it. This person's blood pressure might be high. This one might be hemorrhaging. There are several things that could happen. So those kinds of jobs may be difficult to replicate. Now, the last question you ask yourself is prediction. Is your work based mainly on recognizing familiar patterns? Take, for example, you're a truck driver. You're driving on the road, familiar patterns. The cars are always there. The road signs are there. The road stops are here. Or you're a train driver, right? You're a train driver. You go from this track, you stop at this station, you stop at that station. Those are patterns and they can be predicted. And guess what? You are exposed. So if your answer to these questions, you have more yeses than nos, what that means is you are exposed to being replaced by AI. So ask yourself this question. What part of your work will disappear if AI could do it tomorrow? What part of your work will disappear if AI could do it tomorrow? And the next thing to ask yourself is, what would you do? Or what would still make people choose you? So if AI could do your job tomorrow, but you can also do the same job, why would people choose you? So I gave an example earlier. I'm a truck driver, and right now we have driverless trucks, right? I'm a truck driver, so you have AI that can drive that truck from point A to point B. But you have me that can also drive that truck from point A to point B. What would make people want to choose me over the AI? That's a question to ask yourself. That's a question to ask yourself. Now, like I said, AI is not eliminating everybody at the same time, and it's not even eliminating the entire profession. So your profession may not be entirely eliminated, but what it is doing is it is exposing the shallow version of that profession. What do I mean by this? So let's take a few examples, right? I just thought of taking random examples so that it's more practical to you. So take, for example, if you're a lawyer, right? What are the easily replaceable parts of your job, right? If all you're doing is producing standard documents, subpoenas and all of that, hey, guess what? Those can be replaced easily. We've had lawyers complaining that, I mean, the patronage has dropped because a lot of people can just ask a chat tool to draft a contract, to read through a contract. I mean, the tools can read through thousands of pages of a contract that before a lawyer can do that. So those are replaceable. But what is not replaceable is the ability to interpret complexity, to give sound advice and judgment. So those are the things that AI can't replace. So when we are talking about AI replacing things, right, it's not the whole profession. So AI may not replace lawyers, but AI would replace lawyers that are only operating at the low level activities, the easily replaceable activities, producing standard documents. Let's look at another example. If you're in recruitment, you're in HR. I work with a lot of HR professionals. I also work with people professionals. So I work with a lot of these people. If your job, if all you're doing as a HR professional is screening CVs, you're at risk. I saw a research last week where in the US last year, more than 80% of employment processes, of interview processes were concluded without the introduction of a human. More than 80% of interview processes were concluded without the introduction of a human factor. So if all you're doing is screening CVs, guess what? Them AI tools can screen thousands of CVs in seconds. You can't do that. But there's something you can do. You can recognize potential and shape talent strategy. That is what you can do. So if you're in the people development space, what you should be focusing on is not how to screen CVs. It is how to identify talent, how to develop that capacity to identify talent. Let's take one more. If you're in consulting, like I'm also in consulting, right? And if all you're doing in consulting is producing generic reports, guess what? Those reports can be generated much faster than you can. I was reading a report yesterday where accountants are running out of jobs because them AI tools can't do their accounting jobs. They can take thousands of entries of transactions and categorize them in seconds. An accountant will take hours to do that. So if you're in consulting, if all you're doing is producing generic reports, then your role is very, very critical. Well, your role is it will be replaced easily. That's what I mean. But there are certain aspects that you can do. The human factor, which is diagnosing real problems and guiding change. That's where you should focus your energy. So what you should be doing is, how do I create deeper value within my current profession, within my current business model? How do I create deeper value? Now, there's a challenge that I've been thinking about lately, and for leaders that are watching this right now, it's something we need to begin to think about. I mean, I do a lot of work with leaders to develop leadership capacity across. And one of the things I've been asking myself is this. When you start your journey, your career journey, your business journey, and all of that, you are expected to start at the first rung on the ladder, right? So you do all of those little tasks, to gain experience, because you go somewhere and they tell you, oh, we need 3 years experience, we need 5 years experience. So they expect you to start at the bottom of the ladder, right? But the truth is, many of those careers at the first rung have been eliminated. They've been taken over by AI. How many tellers do you see nowadays? How many till operators do you see nowadays? So for someone that is going into retail, where is he supposed to start his career from when those entry-level tasks have been all automated? And what that means is, if we're not getting enough people at the entry point to gain quality experience that they require, what that means is at some point, very soon, we'll begin to lack leadership capacity. Because if people are no longer learning through routine work, how would organizations develop future judgment? So for leaders that are here that are listening to this right now, this is something you need to begin to think about. Because if you automate all your lower level, operations, then how do you develop the leaders for the future? Anyways, every period of disruption creates the same choice. You have a choice, you have two choices on how you deal with every period of change. And let's run through those choices very quickly. When disruption happens like this, you can either protect what worked. Say, oh, well, this is what has always worked and I'm going to protect it. I ain't going to change that. You can do that. Or you can build what is next. Looking and identifying what's coming next and building that. The choice is yours. You can either defend established systems. This is how we've always done it, so it must remain like that. You can do that. Or you can question old assumptions. The fact that it has always been like this does not mean it has to be like that. There was once upon a time when it was said that it was impossible for the human to cross beyond 40 miles per hour. It was practically impossible. That was what it was said. That a human could not move faster than the pace of a horse. The human being will be crushed to death. But some people question that assumption. People like the Wright brothers thought about, but what if? So disruptions can create two choices. Let's take a few more. You can preserve familiar roles. No, this is how we used to do it. We always had human taxi drivers. We always had human lawn mowers, right? We always had human gardeners. Many lawns today are mowed by, AI robots. So you can choose to preserve familiar roles or redesign how value is created. The last one that I'll look at for now. You can choose to wait for certainty. A lot of people are just waiting. We are not sure what is going to happen. So they are waiting for certainty. That's fine. That's a choice. There's also a choice for you to act before certainty arrives. So you can either protect your past or help build your future. The choice is yours. Which would you rather do today? Now, see, adoption begins before the model fails. Adaptation, rather, begins before the model fails. I'm going to take a look at two well-known organizations that were both faced with the challenge of change, of disruption, and how they reacted to it will tell you what happened afterwards. Now, the first one I'm going to look at is a very well-known one, Kodak. Now, there was once upon a time in the film industry, Kodak dominated more than 60% of that market. Hollywood, anybody that needed to do anything in the film industry, they had to use the Kodak product. Are you aware that the thing that eventually ran Kodak out of the market, they discovered it first? A staff of Kodak was the first to develop a digital camera in the 1970s. A staff of the Kodak developed the digital camera in the 1970s. But then they were heavily invested on film production. And they said, if we decide to develop these digital cameras, people will no longer buy our films. So what did they do? They crushed the idea. So they were protecting what they knew. They were protecting what was working. But we all know what happened. Eventually, the digital camera was developed, and that was what ran Kodak out of the market. Right? Kodak was worth trillions of dollars before. Well, not billions of dollars at some point. Right? Now, let's look at another example of a company that was also faced with changes like this. Adobe. Now, several companies used to operate the model that Adobe was operating in, like the Microsoft. So they used to sell Windows XP, Windows 2023, and all of those things. They used to sell packaged software to you. But right now, they've moved away from packaged software. What do they have now? A subscription model. That was the same kind of change that happened between Blockbuster and Netflix. Netflix started with renting out hard copy DVDs and all of that. But they switched their model, and that's what crushed their competitors. So, how quickly you adapt will determine if you would survive. Oh, thank you. That's Mr. Said. I think that's said on Instagram. He said Nokia. Fantastic. That's another example. Nokia is also one of those examples. They were, driven out of the market because they refused to adapt. So, how quickly you can adapt to the changes that we're experiencing will determine how well you can change. I just discovered, oh shoot, the LinkedIn wasn't live, and I'm guessing some people may have been waiting on LinkedIn up. Unfortunately, LinkedIn was not live. Well, it's too late for me to fix that now. We've gone almost 40 minutes into this. Apologies for those on LinkedIn. Maybe we'll post the video for you afterwards. All right, let's go on. Now, the value ladder has moved. What do I mean by that? The value ladder has moved. Before, the value ladder for level 1 used to be doing work. So completing tasks and producing outputs. That's level 1 value. But the truth is, these AI tools can produce the same level of work now. Now, level 2 is solving problems. Right? The AI tools can do the work, they not necessarily be able to solve problems because they still need some level of guidance, they need some level of direction. So level 2 is about applying judgment to complex situations. And then level 3 is where you should be, which is creating opportunities, seeing possibilities, and mobilizing people around them. That's what it is I'm talking to you about today. How to create opportunities where others are looking and seeing disruptions only. Now, doing work has become cheaper. Like I said, them AI tools can do the work. They can do the research faster. They can draft those letters faster. They can analyze tons and tons of data sets faster. They can produce things faster. They can automate routine executions faster. So doing work has become cheaper. For all of these things, as cheap as maybe $20 per month. But speed alone is no longer the lasting advantage. Speed alone is no longer the lasting advantage. Why? Because problem solvers will remain valuable. Problem solvers. Why? They do more than generate answers. They don't just generate answers. Them AI tools can generate them answers for us. They identify the real issues. They navigate ambiguity. They connect information to context. So them tools can give us information. They may not be able to give us context. In fact, they require context to give us the right information. They make considered judgment calls. They turn insight into decisions. So who are the opportunity creators that we're talking about? I might speed up a bit so that we can round off in good time. Who are the opportunity creators that we're talking about? They are people that they recognize change before it becomes obvious. They connect people, ideas, and resources. Those are the people that are creating the opportunities, and those are the people that will become indispensable. So if you want to be part of those that are indispensable in this AI age, I was saying, we all know what is going on, especially in the tech space, where a lot of redundancies are going on. But recently, Meta hired a guy, and they paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to get him on their team. In fact, the team had approached him before, and he refused. Mark Zuckerberg had to step in himself to get this guy on board. And my question was, the same organization that is laying off thousands of people is still chasing after one person. So I was asking myself, what does this one person have that the thousands of people they have let go do not have? Value. He has become indispensable. It's not because he knows how to do the task. He knows how to, like I said, getting tasks done is now cheap. They build trust across boundaries. They shape new solutions. They turn uncertainty into possibility. So those are the people that are creating opportunities and will become indispensable in this day and age. Now, for you to be able to move to this side of the divide, it first happens in your mind. You need to think, you need to change your thinking patterns. You need to have certain shifts. So they do not simply respond to opportunity, they create the opportunity. And to create that opportunity, you need to change your thinking patterns. So there are 5 shifts that you need to have. Number 1, you need to shift from knowledge. Like I said, knowledge is now cheap. Knowledge is now democratized. Everybody has access to knowledge. It was in low supply, and because of that, demand was high. The pricing of knowledge was high. But right now, knowledge is in massive supply, abundant supply. Therefore, the price of knowledge is low. So what is more valuable now is the judgment that you can make from that knowledge. That's what the world talks about. There's a difference between wisdom and understanding. Understanding is the knowledge, knowing. Wisdom is the right application of that knowledge. You need to move from content to trust. There's a lot of content everywhere, knowledge everywhere. Go online today. There are thousands and thousands of videos, of megabytes of videos released every second. But how many of them are trustworthy? So you need to shift from content to trust. You need to shift from skills to problem framing. It's not just about acquiring new skills. Yes, acquiring skills are good, but you need to shift from you need to shift to how to solve problems, how to frame problems, and then solve problems with those skills. You need to shift from execution to leadership. A lot of them AI tools can execute easily for us, but they lack leadership. So where you need to focus on is, how do I move from just execution to leadership? And then certainty. You need to move from certainty, because a lot of people are waiting. I talked about Kodak. Kodak was waiting for certainty. They weren't sure what was going to happen with, the film industry. But some people adapted, and their speed to adaptation will determine how high you rise eventually. So those are the 5 major shifts that you need to have. Now, very quickly, I'll talk to you about, I created a framework to help people to navigate these challenges, and I call it the growth code, right? There are 6 phases in the growth code. It's a framework for creating opportunities, for remaining relevant, and building sustainable success in a changing world. So I'm just going to run through them very quickly. There are 6 phases. The first phase is, so the G stands for goal clarity. Goal clarity. Clear direction helps you to recognize which opportunities belong to the future that you are building. So ask yourself, what are you intentionally trying to build over the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever? Clear direction. Some people, because of the uncertainty, they don't even know what they're going to build. You need clear direction. So that's the G, goal clarity. I can't spend a lot of time on this. I'm trying not to, get this to be too long. I know it's been a long day for many people. For my people in the other part of the world, probably still the afternoon for you there. Okay, so let's run. The next is the R. Remember, we're talking about growth, Growth. So let's go to R. What is the R? The R stands for refined strategy. Now you understand what it is that you want to achieve. You understand what you are intentionally trying to build. That's your goal. The next thing is, what strategy are you going to apply to achieve that? Because strategy is deciding where your efforts will create the greatest value. Remember, we're talking about value creation here, not just knowledge, right? So you need to know, where am I going to apply the efforts to gain the greatest value? And what must I stop doing? That's what's called the SSML model, which is, what must I start doing? What must I stop doing? What must I do more of? And what must I do less of? SSML. So what should you stop doing because it no longer creates meaningful value? Some people are hung up on the past because they've done a particular job in a particular way for the past 30 years. They cannot see themselves changing. Let's run. The next is O. O stands for optimized performance. Optimized performance. So AI should not only make you faster, it should make your work sharper, more consistent, and more valuable. So a lot of people feel to achieve more, you need to do more work. That's not true. You can optimize your performance to the point that you can do less and achieve more. So ask yourself, where can AI improve your output without weakening your judgment? What part of your production line, if you're in production, can be automated without weakening your judgment, without compromising on standards? That's the O. Let's go on. The W is wealth creation. It's one thing to be able to generate value. It's another thing to be able to convert that value into income, influence, assets, and future choices. A lot of people are struggling not because they don't have value to deliver to the world, but because they struggle to communicate the value in such a way that the people that require that value will be more than ready to pay for it. So wealth creation is the ability to be able to convert the value that you generate into income. So ask yourself, what value can you create that people or organizations will be willing to invest in? So that's the W. We got 2 more to go. Let's go to the T. The T stands for transformative action. A lot of people come to webinars like this. They hear information like this every day. But at the end of it, maybe they are motivated for the few minutes that they watch it, and at the end of it, life goes back to normal. Nothing changes. Insight without action changes nothing. Reinvention requires deliberate movement. So ask yourself, what important action have you delayed? Because you're waiting for certainty, because you're not sure. Let me see what would happen. Some people are on the job, right? I know people that they are working somewhere right now. They are not sure if it's going to be their turn to be made redundant tomorrow, and they're just waiting, uncertainty. There are several other things they're thinking of that they can do, but because they're not sure, maybe that they're waiting. So what action do you need to take? Some people have been thinking about, I'm going to start that business, or I'm going to sell that idea to my boss. I'm going to, but because they're not sure, they don't take any actions. I listened to, was it Warren Buffett? And it says the difference between the rich, the wealthy, and the poor is taking actions. The wealthy take action. The poor will be waiting for a perfect time. And then the last one is the H, the holistic success. Because what's the point of having a life? What's the point of making a living without having a life? So success must remain meaningful, sustainable, and healthy as your career or your business grows. So ask yourself, what must remain healthy and whole while your career or business grows? So that's the whole framework, the whole growth code framework. So goal clarity, refined strategy, optimized performance, wealth creation, transformative action, and holistic success. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been on this webinar so far, thank you so much for being here now. And I just talked about action is very key. So what I'm going to be doing for you is I'm going to give you a 30-day opportunity challenge, at least until the next time I hold this webinar, which will be at the end of August, right? A 30-day, why am I keep saying 90? A 30-day opportunity challenge. What do I want you to do? In the first week, right? Audit your value. Do a proper audit. And I'm giving you some examples of how to audit, some questions you can ask yourself. What can I reproduce? What can AI reproduce rather? And what do people uniquely trust you for? Sit down and audit your business, audit your career, audit your skills. That's what I want you to do for the first week. Do a proper audit. Then the second week, I want you to elevate one workflow. So use AI to improve one important piece of work without outsourcing your judgment. One of the things that, I decided to automate recently because yes, I've got video editors that work and produce content, but I just felt I wanted to, I also do video editing myself, even though I don't have the time to do that. My team gets to do a lot of that. But recently I just said, you know what, I'm going to automate this process because there are AI tools now. I can talk to them and they get my videos edited for me. So what part of your process do you need to involve AI? So elevate just one workflow, one at a time. You don't think of automating everything at a time. You're going to crash. Just one. That's for week 2. By week 3, make your value visible. Share one useful insight and strengthen one strategic relationship. So share one useful insight. Go on your LinkedIn, go on YouTube, go wherever. Talk to people about the insight you have received. Share it with your colleagues, share it with your bosses, share it with people around you. Make yourself visible. Remember, the first thing is to generate value. The next thing, wealth creation, is to be able to convert that value into income, into value, into assets, right? And then by week 4, hopefully by the time we'll be meeting again at the end of next week, create one opportunity. Pitch your products or services to someone, propose something to someone, solve a problem, launch something, right, that did not exist before. That's my 30-day challenge to every one of you. Now, AI will change the tools, no doubt. You must change the value that you create. The future belongs to opportunity creators. These days we talk a lot about creators. I'm a content creator. Remember, we looked at that earlier. It's no longer about content, it's about trust. So the future will not belong to content creators, it will belong to opportunity creators. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been amazing sharing these thoughts and ideas with you. This is my way of giving back and sharing my value as much as possible. If you've enjoyed this, please give me a like, give me a follow, share it with someone that needs to hear it, drop a comment, let's know what it is that you gain from it. And in the journey of your 30-day challenge, if you, get stuck somewhere and you need advice or whatever, drop me a message. I promise you, I read all my messages myself, and I'll be more than happy to respond to your messages. Thank you very much. I'm going to leave you with what I say to everybody. There is greatness on your inside, and the world is waiting for you to birth and manifest your greatness. Go out there and be profitable, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.